So if you're a ministry leader working to meet people's emotional and spiritual needs, you're on the front lines of a silent war that many have termed a mental health crisis. And so people are dealing with an onslaught of issues like anxiety, grief, mental illness, family troubles, hopelessness. And so, how do we respond, and how are we to be helpful? Today, we're going to be hearing from social researcher and also best-selling author Shaunti Feldhahn, and also psychologist and professor Jim Sells. And so, they're going to be talking to us about their new book, "When Hurting People Come to Church." You're really going to be blessed by what they have to share today. So, I'll turn things over to Jim and also to Shaunti.
Welcome. It is a delight to be here. And as I kind of scroll through all the folks that are here, so many uh, cherished friends that I see having gathered. So uh, allow me to stay in my formal presenter role and not break out and give you an electronic big wet kiss on your forehead and a warm hug. Uh, so I'll be refrained and professional in this context. I'm Jim Sells, and Shanti, is you want to like hit the PowerPoint slides
Absolutely.
uh,
Hold on. We are gonna.
and I teach at Regent University. I'm a counseling professor, a licensed psychologist, and I train graduate students in counseling and uh, um, psychology skills. And I'm delighted to have my coworker and collaborator and co-author Shaunti Feldhahn here. So
Yep.
go ahead.
Delighted to be with you guys. Social researcher, author, um, and just am thrilled to be able to be part of the Common Table conversation because I love what you guys all do, and Thad, I love what you bring together. So
Yeah, yeah. We want to make capital use of your time. Thanks for spending an hour with us. And oftentimes, if I'm speaking to a church or if Shanti is speaking to a church, we'll speak around the state of mental health. I'm just going to condense that to about two breaths or three breaths worth of language here because we're all there. We know this one. But the one theme that I would like to touch on that you all experience, go ahead and go to the next slide, Shanti. Uh, this feeling where we have uh, too many folks and not enough helpers for the folks that we have. This, I think, a different twist to it. This, I think, is the evidence of our success. For the length of time that I've been in the mental health profession in a training role, we have tried to remove stigma. We don't need to try to do that anymore. Like now, if you're a 17-year-old, a junior in high school, and you don't have a therapist, you go to your parents and say, "Mom, what's wrong with me? All my friends do. How come I can't have one?" And that's part of the problem we have that we want to be addressing in today's context with you all. Like this mental health crisis is actually the evidence of mental health success and some amplification of needs that we think the church has a unique role in being able to attend. And and this is where we are most excited about sharing our findings from our research study and our response to that study in terms of intervention. Our goal is to help create with you a culture of care that exists in churches so that uh, every person who loves Jesus, who attends a community of saints, is capable of sitting with it with the pain of other people, not as a therapist, but as a fellow believer, as one who is an ambassador of Christ, as described in the New Testament, like one who stands for another, stands for Jesus, and I can attend to your pain um, as one friend with another friend talking over tea and toast in a screen porch in a backyard with an open Bible and a deep concern for one another's well-being. That's our vision, that's our goal, that's the culture we're trying to create.
So, in order to help you all catch this vision, let's show you. This is just a simple way of capturing visually what happens today and what we are suggesting probably needs to happen. So, think of the need that exists in the community and in the church, and the church ability to meet that need as these two triangles, these two sort of pyramids. And as you go up in the pyramid, you get to more significant issues. And in the church pyramid, you get to more authority and more specialization. So think of it as the need being the top of the pyramid are obviously the people who have some, pretty significant issues that they're dealing with. This is the mom with really significant postpartum depression, for example. Maybe her husband is worried about the baby. This is the marriage where the divorce lawyers are being called and it's just crisis mode. But then you also have sort of the next level down. And those needs, they're there, they're very real. But these folks are pretty functional. This could be somebody who's gone in and out of addiction and is struggling right now, but they're going to work. This could be the mom who's got depression, but she is getting out of bed. She's taking care of the kids, but there's just a need there. This is the marriage where the divorce lawyers haven't been called, but it's pretty tough right now. And then the next level down are just everybody else. This is people with pain. This is, of course, you're sad. Your mom died. Anybody would be sad. So think of that as the need in these three buckets, kind of artificial, but you see what we're talking about. Then the church is also divided. You could divide this into three sections. At the top, you have the pastors, and by extension, the mental health professionals that they refer people to. That the next level down, you could say these are not clinicians, these are not licensed counselors, but they are trained in some way. For example, Jim and I were just doing a podcast a few minutes ago with the Pure Desire Ministry. And so, this is a group of people that the facilitators have been quite trained on sexual addiction and sexual brokenness. Now, they may not be able to help the marriage that's in crisis. They may not know what to do about depression, but when it comes to their lane, they've got a little more training. And then below that, you have everybody else. You have the lay listeners. This is the person who, when you're sad because your mom died and you just need to have a friend to have a coffee with, this is the person that you automatically kind of reach out to. Here's the problem today. What happens today in the church is that all of those needs get funneled up to the top of the church pyramid. This is the reason so many pastors are feeling so overwhelmed. My husband Jeff and I were speaking at a little church in Ohio a few weeks back, and the pastor was talking about, like, it's a small church. This is probably 150 people, not tiny, but relatively small. And he said, two to three people a day, not just from the congregation, but from the community, come in with needs. And he just feels overwhelmed. And by extension, all of the people that he refers people to most of the counselors are full. And it's pretty hard to get on their schedule. So here is what we're suggesting, that maybe there's a shift here in thinking of this just a little bit differently, and think of it by levels, coordinating this by levels. And so the people with the really significant issues can see the pastor and the mental health professional because they have room to see them, because the folks who are maybe in a more needy but functional space, maybe they get referred to the Pure Desire Ministry or the Grief Share Ministry or the marriage mentors who love to walk alongside people who have marriage issues. And then the people with pain, you maybe don't need a counselor. Maybe you do, but maybe what you really need is someone to walk alongside you, put their arm around you and say, I'm here. And so what we're suggesting is that as a cultural shift, we see a different strategy emerging. And in the next session, Jim and I will talk about the fact that we did a big study of more than 2,000 pastors and church leaders to find out what are churches already doing in this area. And when they're doing something in this area, it tended to look like this. And so we call this the church care strategy: coordinated attention, restoration, and encouragement. Not clinicians, not licensed counselors, but within the church, building up those two bottom buckets of the trained helpers and especially the lay listeners with some sort of a coordinator in the middle. And we'll talk more about that in the next set.
All right. Well, thank you so much. So we're going to be headed back out into breakout rooms for just a few minutes of conversation. And the prompt that I would like to provide you with is this. So in your breakout rooms, you will discuss what is it that's standing out to you thus far in today's presentation?
So what we're going to talk about for the next couple of minutes is to let you all know the results of the investigation that we did of what is it that the church thinks about mental health. We ended up doing this study that I mentioned of 2,000 pastors and church leaders, what basically asking, what is the church already doing? What are their perspectives around mental health? And this was purposefully across many streams of the church, Protestant and Catholic. I see Jen Housel on here. Thank you, Jen, for all the help you gave us. A wide array of denominations and traditions. Shout out to Paul Kuzma, who was helping us with a lot of the pastors from the Foursquare Church, and we just went as wide as we possibly could, across ethnicities, church size, all different views of theology. And so what did we come up with as far as how people think about this need today? Well, the most important thing for you all to be aware of is that the pastors, the church leaders, see this as a very, very, very clear need in the church. And this was 81% of the pastors agreed or somewhat agreed that mental health issues are common. Now, we don't know who that 19% is saying that they're not, but that's the numbers that we had. And probably also related, was that the vast majority, 80%, said the need is greater than I can handle. And the vast majority of the people who disagreed were in that bucket that said the issues just don't exist in my church. So for the people who see it, it's very close to 100% that say, I just can't do it all by myself. Now, here is where the rubber meets the road. Do you have an effective process in place for addressing these issues? And 2/3, 68%, said that they couldn't say that. 68% said that they disagreed, somewhat disagreed. Only 32% said, yep, we have an effective process. We are doing a good job of addressing the mental health needs of our people. And when we ran some crosstabs and looked at what that 32% said that they were offering in their church, it seems like a fairly realistic number. That roughly 1/3 of churches seem to be moving forward reasonably well in this area. Here's the main issue that we found particularly important, and we're pursuing a journal article on this right now, to try to dive a little bit deeper into it, which is that there's a very, very clear conflict in what pastors believe. There's some cognitive dissonance here. 88% of pastors say that if a person's presenting issues psychological rather than spiritual, which, by the way, we probably all know is a bit of a false distinction, but that's the way the pastors think about it, that if it's depression, if it's anxiety, if it's whatever, the church's primary service should be to refer to a professional. But at the same time, 96%, so that was 88%, but at the same time, 96% say that, but wait, one of the best ways to foster really good mental health inside the church is to have a community of people supporting one another and walking alongside, not send them out. So you can see there's a conflict here. This was very, very common in the interviews. I had one pastor who I happen to know, he's been an advisor on some of our projects. And when we were talking about what happens if the need that comes to you because somebody is in pain, what happens if it's a youth issue? What happens if it's a marriage issue? What happens if it's, whatever? And he's like, oh, well, if it's youth, it goes to Pastor so and so. If somebody's down front crying and asking for prayer because of a marriage issue, it'll come to this pastor. I said, what happens if someone comes down front and asks for prayer for anxiety or depression or trauma? And he pushed away from, we were doing this over Zoom, he pushed away from the camera and he kind of got this alarmed look on his face. And he said, I feel like you just handed me a scalpel and said, someone down front is having a heart attack. Here, Pastor, go. He's like, I don't know what to do. So that is the reason for that feeling of, oh my gosh, my main service should be referred to a mental health professional. There's a feeling that I'm not a specialist. And yet at the same time, but wait, people walking alongside one another is very important. So there is a clear solution to this that most pastors also agreed with, which is most people with mental health issues could be greatly helped by spending time with a Christian lay counselor, a Christian coach, a lay listener who will listen to them and walk alongside them for a season. And 94% agreed with that. And so we see that as a need to build up because we asked those folks who agreed with that, do you have that in your church? Are there lay people who could walk alongside in that way, that they're trained in listening? Does it exist? And as you can see, only 38% said that it did, 62% didn't. And this was based on all sorts of things. We looked at, whether the church said they had a Stephen ministry. Did they have lay counseling? Did they have different kinds of peer groups? And so these were the numbers that seemed pretty realistic. So you can see that there is some work to be done in order to have this kind of walking alongside actually happen, which is then where Jim takes over.
Glad to not so much take over, but share a few thoughts. So, a driving force for this whole project was a family that had need that could not be helped. They were in crisis. They had adolescents that were had emerging mental health issues, and their church could not help them. This family has also had significant wealth, and they, through a series of circumstances, came to Shaunti and I and asked, "We will give you 3 years." And in that 3 years was do this survey, write the book, and create resources with a team that you've put together to address comprehensive care within the church based on the outcome of your survey. Make it available to every church, every denomination, Spanish and English, across Protestant Catholic traditions, and make it free. That was our mandate. And so what we have done then in responding to this and then talking to pastors, looking at that triangle, we identified this. There are some great therapists doing great work, and they're integrative in their Christian mission, and they are clinically sound, and they're at the top of the triangle. And there are some incredible ministries, and just many of you represent those incredible ministries and are doing tremendous work in the middle part of the triangle. Where we have tried to focus is on the bottom part, where we are not so much seeking as our primary mission to offer program, but to create culture. And the culture we wish to create is that every Christian be capable of attending to the emotional needs of others within their community and within their church, and that every Christian sees one another as a safe space by which the pain that they are addressing on a daily level can be uh, cared for by those who love them and walk with them for the decades of life that they are participating within that faith community. We think the theology of hospitality that so many of you have written about and know about and exercise daily, uh, meaning not I create a really great taco or burrito or casserole and I invite you over to my house, but I am really good at engaging you around life issues. That is what hospice means in the New Testament origin. Uh, that ministry has been severely limited within the church culture today. And we seek to bring at the bottom level, the lay level, uh, the concept of Christian care applied to uh, people that have specific callings to attend to this, and also just people who are in the pews who are attending to the daily pain of small group members. Uh, I use often the illustration. Our target here is a woman named Megan who works with 3-year-olds in the nursery during the worship service. Megan hands to Diana their her 3-year-old son Jacob at the end of church and says, Jacob just wanted to sit in my lap today and he didn't want to play with others. Megan's word to Diana bring tears. Automatically, Diana starts to cry. Like, oh my goodness, what have I done? Like, no, that's not your response. Your response was, dear Diana, no one's in the nursing room. Can we go talk? That should be the capable response of every Christian in every church, uh, and is able to attend to the emotional needs at the basic primary friend to friend level. Uh, let's do it there first. So the next slide, Shaunti. Uh, what we have done, and we won't go into it in great detail. We can just invite you to attend to it, to look through it. It's all free. You're welcome to scan and to share, uh, the churchcares.com. You can look at our resources. You can uh, download all of the resources available to you. Uh, uh, they are meant to be produced and distributed, and they are meant to be distributed to churches and allow leaders to say these are some basic resources by which we can build a culture. Um, they are free to adjust, free to adapt, free to make fit in a given church's DNA and subculture. What we have tried to do is listen to as many people as we can, to borrow from people who have willingly given us their resources, load it up here, and prepare the church to create ministry.
And Jim,
But
you might want to mention the downloading the kit in particular.
yes, well, good. So by scanning this, you can go to the resource page, and it says download the kit for free. You type in your email address, and and then you have access to everything. The manuals, dozens and dozens of resource problem solution guides that we have created for what we think is every problem that any church has brought to us. We've tried to create a fix, a tire patch, what to do if. What to do if you think you're going to get sued. So how do you have this ministry? Well, let's talk to a lawyer. And so we went to a regent law professor to say, look this up. He sent his law clerk to figure it out and create a response for us so we can give it to you. This is what you do in your bylaws as a church to make sure that you are legally on sound footing in offering these kinds of ministries. So that's just one example. We have dozens of different problems slash solutions that have come to us that we're trying to offer to you. Our manuals, our videotapes, it's yours. take it, distribute it, get it out there. We also offer in this, you'll have access to a helper training course. And this is what at the base, it's a 6-hour training. And that's what we are saying as our baseline for fundamental care within churches. We are not trying to have certified programming that requires dozens and dozens or a year's worth of training. We want you to be able to comfortably sit with another person in pain in 6 hours. It does not make you a therapist. It makes you already are a friend. Now we want you to have to be a friend with resources, so you know what to do. Kind of like when I was an adolescent, I attended a campus crusade evangelism training on a Saturday. Here's how you do the 4 spiritual laws. Didn't make me a theologian. It didn't make me a pastor, but it equipped me with a tool so that I knew what to do in sharing my faith with another college student. We want it to be at that level. That's easy access. And we have Charlie Beck, who is here. She is one that has been leading day-long trainings. If you want to sign up for and receive the training yourself on a Saturday, we have the next one is in March, and you can sign up for that. And Charlie can train you as you go to train your church or you go to train your organization on how to do it. So then thank you, Charlie. You want to pop in and say hi and just like give us a 15-minute, here's what we do in the training?
Maybe not
Sure.
15 minutes, but
I'm sorry, I said
15
15 minutes. I meant
seconds.
15 seconds.
15 seconds.
Seconds.
Yes. Sorry, my camera is broken. So I apologize. I don't even know why. Anyway, so you want me to talk about the training in 15 seconds?
Yes.
Okay. So what I love about the training is you can set it up in 6 hours, you can set it up in 3 hours, 6 weeks, and it's a fantastic practical skill-based training that is very uh, integrative, right? Like, so you get to participate with each other and practice the skills along with learning the skills. And so I've led the training several times, and everybody has walked away with learning something and learning how to utilize that in their church setting. So it's been fun.
Great. Thank you. And then finally, if you would like Shaunti or me or one of our other team members to come to your church, to come to your ministry, we're available for that. And you can reach out to this email address, send an email to Nicole, and we can set that up. So, Shaunti, what did I miss in the quick run through?
I think you got everything. The only thing I would add is many of you we've already talked to. We've talked about your denomination, your ministry. How can this serve your people? Some of you participated in the survey. Thank you. Next step, there are many of you that might be juggling, what does this look like for our denomination? How can we help equip our pastors, our churches in this area? How can we take this as a next step in our ministry? And we would love to talk to you about that. So just reach out to us and we'd be glad to set up a phone call to talk about, or a Zoom call to talk about what that might look like. Just as one example, there's a ministry that we're integrating with right now where they offer a particular curriculum based on trauma called Nothing is Wasted. The name of the curriculum is called From Pain to Purpose. And they're taking folks who've gone through trauma through a healing process and out the other side, and then what? Right? Like they've all these people who are getting healed and set free, and they want to help others. So a good next step is, hey, do the listening training, right? Like you've got all these folks who might want to help, but this gives them sort of a next step runway to help, and also gives the church more of a platform of that lay listening kind of group. So if you're interested, if that sparks anything, please get in touch with us.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, Jim and Shaunti. We're going to move to a time of Q&A, and so I'll invite you, if you do have a question, feel free to use the raise hand function. You're also welcome to put something in the chat. I'll get us started, though. And I'll just mention that I was in a nursing home setting just recently, and I talked with one of the chaplains who was there. And the chaplain made this comment to me that it's just kind of been ringing in my ears. And basically, what the chaplain said was, we tried to create a culture around here in this nursing home because it's a faith-based kind of nursing home that I can come as your chaplain and pray for you, but I want to empower you to begin the prayer before I get there. Like, don't think you have to wait to start the prayer for me to arrive. So the thing that I just want to kind of set the stage with for conversation is the beautiful way that I think your model is affirming what in the Protestant tradition we would call the priesthood of all believers, or the Roman Catholic Church would talk about the common priesthood of the faithful, or the Orthodox would talk about the royal priesthood. Basically, the idea that you don't just have to be in vocational ministry in order to have a mission, a purpose, a calling, and for God to actually use you in some really compelling ways. So I wonder if you could just talk a little bit more about that, and if you've seen ways as you've been implementing these ideas, do you find that those that are in the pews like actually are taking on like a different level of identity and responsibility and fulfillment in their own faith journey?
Yeah. I love how you introduced that, Thad. In our training, one of the key themes, key skills is prayer. And most people pay attention to the prepositions. Most people are very comfortable praying for someone. They're less comfortable praying with someone. And the four is, it's been so good to talk to you. I gotta go, but before I go, can I pray for you? It's the termination of relationship. And we want to say, like, no, you don't pray to stop things, you pray to start things. Can I engage with you before God, this thing that has burdened you? And now that you shared it with me, I carry some of that burden with you. Let's take this to God together. And as part of our friendship now is praying with one another around these things that we are powerless to attend to by ourselves. And that's the concept we want to create with people in the church, not as an externalized activity, but as an internalized factor in my engagement with you.
That's great. Yeah. And what an incarnational way to
Yeah.
think about that, right? Like
Yeah.
with. So
Yes.
being with someone, not just in another type of capacity. All right. Anastasia Thomas in the chat asked a question. So, do you have any recommendations on tools for the coordinator to define the level of the need of the
Okay.
person in the church? So, in other words, to know with whom to link for better care. And so, if I can layer on to that question, then one of the things I wanted to talk about is the how and when to let go. So, if this is designed for folks like in kind of just the general population to be able to sit with and to listen, how do you know when it's time for you to refer up the chain? And then do you have specific recommendations for that coordinator to define the level of care that's needed?
Todd, do you want to take that?
I was just thinking the short answer is yes, we have some resources that might be helpful. I'd love Jim to jump in on one piece of this, but just from a resource perspective, for example, when we were writing the book, one of the things that we wanted to do was actually have a chapter on this topic, and we just couldn't fit it. Like, we didn't want the book to be 500 pages long, right? So we ended up putting an appendix basically online at thechurchcares.com. And it was written by somebody who I think was on the call. I don't know if he still is.
Yeah.
Walter just
Walter, are you still here?
I don't know if Walter is
Yes,
still
I'm here.
here. Okay.
Yeah.
He's somewhere. Anyway, there is a chapter, there is an article that is written on how do you know when to make a referral in this way. And so that's an example of
Yeah.
sort of a starting point, but I'll let Walter
Yeah.
and
Walter, you
Jim.
want to attend to that just for a few seconds?
Yeah, so the document that we came in is actually available online in the appendix section of the book. But what basically it's a living document which it just walks through the process of where a coordinator can walk with the person. And the idea, the philosophical framework that you want to work in is that you're not referring out, you're referring with. If that it comes to a point that you are walking with that person. So it doesn't mean like there's a goodbye detachment, but there's like a process of walking with the person. So it still continues to carry that philosophy that it's a community and that you're not just like referring out. So it's just but I believe Dr. Sells and Shaunti, I think it's available. We can still like
It is.
people can
It's
access it
there.
right online.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
it's online.
I know
It's
there's
in the
been some
resources
changes online.
section.
Yeah.
Jim,
Yeah.
did you want to give
Yeah.
just like a 30-second, like, here's the difference, here's how you know when you need to refer it upward?
Yeah. Uh, most church ministries have someone on in-house with some degree of mental health expertise. They're serving as a coordinator, they're serving as the guide, they're serving as the decision maker for appropriate assessment. And utilizing, we offer some very basic publicly available assessment tools that any non-clinician can use. The church can use that, made them those are accessible through the website. Uh, and and there's a couple of decisions. One, the to for that coordinator to help you, the caregiver, with what is the degree of comfort that you carry, what is the degree of concern that the other person carries, and and do you need more reinforcement to attend to this? You can always attend at the basic level of just one person next to another person talking. Is there more that's required here? And this is where part of the question leads to, because frequently, if I'm a listener and I'm hanging out with someone for 5 or 6 weeks, I need to go to send them someplace. I'm likely to send them, if we're talking about patterns of addiction in life, I'm likely to send them to the group context. Maybe it's a Pure Desire ministry, or maybe it's a Celebrate Recovery ministry, or maybe it's like I'm having an avenue within my church or within the community of churches where they can go. Uh, and my relationship may continue, but I am now complicating my relationship with other support systems that exist within the church community. Or it might be a referral to someone like me as a psychologist to attend also to the needs that emerge. So taking Walter's idea of it's not a I'm going to send you out because I'm not capable, is no, your need, I am capable of attending to your need at the level that I am skilled in. A brother in Christ who loves you.
That's
And you need some additional things that would be beneficial for you for your full healing.
But
Let's
just to
walk together.
Yeah, just to wrap that up, the key, we didn't really get a chance to explain this in when we were talking, but the key is the pastor can't be the one to do this. This is why every church needs a coordinator of some kind. And the coordinator, the best person, is someone who already has some level of clinical training. Like, one of the churches I interviewed was a small church in the middle of Oklahoma in the farm country, and they had a retired nurse who served as their coordinator, but just some ability to do triage and to have that sense for, is the person's need overwhelming the lay listener's ability to handle it? And sometimes you know that at the beginning and you triage to a higher level. Sometimes that becomes clear as you go along, but that's why there has to be some sort of a structure, even if it's a very simple one.
Yeah.
That's great.
And
Well,
I should say also,
yes,
since Walter was here, Walter leads our Latino initiative. So he pastors a church in the Boston area, and also is engaging with churches across the country and outside the country because we've duplicated all of our resources in Spanish. We also have someone who's not on the call here, Dr. Stacy Ote Scott, that is our Black Church Initiative leader. So she is pastoring in an African American church tradition and is involved in engaging the African American church across all denominations, but how this can be utilized. We're finding that our highest response rates are with minority churches, ethnic minority churches. Both the Latino speaking church and the Black church have been incredibly responsive to, like, we need this here.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And Pastor Walter, do you want to speak to that, what you're seeing within the Latino context?
Yeah, thank you. And just to like really just really reaffirms a lot of the background research that's already been done. It's just that the component that really comes to be like highlighted of notice is that some certain cultural values are very much in conjunction of what the church cares, and programs such as these really carry, where there's integration of faith and mental health. There is a higher reception because already many of these places are places where it's the front lines, where people are coming in and they're seeking help. Now the pastors and the people who are in church leadership see that, and they realize that there is a need for additional training, a need for the church to
Mhm.
change the at least the perception of mental health. And so like there's still stigma, there's still like a lot of the things that are still like are still have to deal with it, but at the same time we're going through that past that point at this moment where there's more of an action towards wanting training. And we're seeing that the cultural values have really play a huge factor, such as, just to name a component, is that there is values placed on knowing the person whom you are associating with. And within like Latino circles, a lot of times, if you know somebody, that means there's like a lot of trust already given to that person. So within that network, within that community, a lot of times there's a greater acceptance once that person is trained. Say it's the coordinator or a lay listener who's there already in that circle, they are more apt to be able to reach out for help. So that's the part of this success that we're seeing, is that it's really just validating already the existence of research already that already speaks on these issues. But
That's
yeah.
great. Thank you very much, Walter. So I want to just name that we are at the hour. And so if you do need to head out, we do understand that. But I'd love to keep the conversation going for just a little bit longer. There's a few more questions that I've got personally, but I know there's a few more that other folks have as well. The first one that I wanted to just touch on is the one that's here in the chat from Jean Ann Rogers. She says, are the 6 trainings included in the book, or are they different? So how do the materials online relate to what's in the book? How do you pair those things together?
Yeah, the 6 trainings are not in the book. The 6 trainings are available through our website. The manual, the leader's guide, and the videos are all available just by logging in, and it's yours free. So, excuse me. The book is more of our research, and then our response to the research around what do we think we could do here. And it's offering the basic best practices that we found in churches, offering it back with some additional ideas.
That's great. Wonderful. All right. So here's the next conundrum. And it's really, I think, Shaunti, you pointed to this, right? The part of the problem is we've got everything coming up to a very limited number of providers. And so
Yeah.
part of the solution that you've identified is getting things back down away from the place where there are certified, trained, clinical kind of professionals. With that said, I have a sneaky suspicion that there is also the requirement. I know this is not particularly your area, but I would love to hear your thoughts on this. That in the larger scale, that we need to address the top of the pipeline as well. And I'm going to give you a quick example on this. My understanding is that if you have a significant issue, like let's say there's somebody in your youth group that says, I got some mental health problems, and you start referring them up that pipeline, sometimes it can be a 6 to 9 month wait
Oh, yeah.
just to receive the help that they need. So the reason I'm bringing this up is I'm channeling my good friend Bob Anthony. And Bob Anthony runs an organization called Adolescent Wellness and has developed something called Building Bridges of Understanding, which is in the chat. One of the ways that he is seen as kind of trying to help triage, but up towards the top, is to think about ways that we could help pediatricians become
Mhm.
frontline mental health professionals. Because one thing you're not taught in medical school, at least for pediatrics, is mental health. So typically they're just referring off, even though they are some of the frontline providers. Mom comes in and says, hey, Johnny's having some problems, and they don't know what to do because it's not physical in nature.
Yeah.
So that's been one of the issues that he's addressed. The reason I'm bringing this up is because Bob, he would so gracefully say, are we not just making the problem worse? So here's what he would frame it. Because when people, by normalizing the conversation and having it out there, then we establish an expectation is that you can be helped. And if they get kind of up the pipeline to the place where and they're told, you know what, it's going to be 6 to 9 months before there's a qualified person that can actually help you. He might say, if we don't address the top of the pyramid, while we've actually created an expectation that somebody could be helped, and then they walk away going, there's no one here to help me. So respond a little bit to that. Let's grapple with the top of the pipeline, the bottom of the pyramid, and how those two relate to one another.
Well, Jim wrote a book on this, other than the one that we're talking about today, because his whole, as a clinician and a clinical psychologist for 30 years and training many others, recognized years ago this was going to have to be addressed. Jim, you're on mute. I don't know if you know that.
It's always good to be on mute when you're coughing. How about that?
Ah,
So I'm trying to
there we go.
spare everybody of my winter sinuses. So yes, I love seeing the people as a psychologist. I love seeing the people who don't need to see me. I feel so good about myself because they get better in 6 weeks and they pay cash. My apology for that crassness, but that's like I'm aware of that within me. I don't want to see a borderline personality disorder person because they're much harder and it's tough work. Uh, However, in my own arrogance as a psychologist that wants to see easy people, I'm aware that I have helped create the problem that says, you should come to see me. No, you shouldn't. You should come to see, you should be involved in a community of people who can love you within a church set context, within the ministry you described or the system you described, within uh, community clubs and organizations where there is a very healthy way to attend to the low level, low lying fruit of people in pain. Now, if I can help create a cultural shift, that's going to free up a lot of space that is now being clogged by the adolescent who who feels stressed over the day to day needs of life. Right now, that parent sends that person to me because there's no one else for them to send the person to. Uh, and I want to create that culture where there is a triaging of care. Many of the great ministry organizations that like, is there anything better out there than Young Life for adolescents? Like, and they've been doing it for 75 years. Like, I'm just going to go to the high school football game and I'm going to love on kids. And that kid is going to hang out with me and we're going to talk about my parents' divorce. And we're going to say, Jesus can help here. Uh, so there's a plurality of great places for people to go without having to see me. And if I'm freed up now to see the people who need to see me, I need to see uh, the person that's addressing bipolar disease, because that's really, really hard. And that messes up churches because they don't know what to do with the complexity of manic states. And like, but I know what to do. Uh, so so that's what I'm trying to do ultimately is participate in a massive cultural recorrection around what's appropriate for me and what's appropriate for everybody else. Uh,
Let me
That's
jump
great.
in there also, Thad, because it's interesting. This plugs in to a second research project and a second book that I'm working on. That while Jim and I were working on sort of the top-down strategy, how can the church become a key solution to the mental health crisis? At the same time, one of my other research projects was what's a bottom-up strategy? How can we take control and take charge of our own mental health? And our own wellness. And one of the factors, the study, the short version is the study was basically looking at investigating the habits of the most resilient, joyful, hopeful people. Like, what are they doing differently? And it's interesting because we found 10 things that are going into the book. It's called Habits of Hope. And one of those 10 things is that the most hopeful people, including the people who started out in really difficult circumstances, but are walking through them relatively well, one of those habits is that they've gotten comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? That they have recognized, oh, I'm not supposed to, like, it's okay to feel a little bit of anxiety. That doesn't mean I have a disorder, right? That's that kind of awareness and what does that look like on a day-to-day basis is another solution.
Great. Wonderful. All right. So, oh, and let me insert parenthetically. This might be part of the resources you have online, but I wonder if it's not, this may be just a little plug idea. Take your leave, totally up to you. But I wonder if there's some type of, we talked about the vocational calling for the folks that are in the pews. And I wonder if there's something, a document or something like that, a guide that can help if somebody starts to embrace this practice and feels called by God to go up the pyramid, right? Like, how do they do that? And, where do they turn? Because I think that it would be amazing if God might call folks from the
Totally.
pew to start going up the pipeline in some amazing ways. All right, last question. We're going to give to Jeremy Thomas that I'm going to layer on just a little bit. It's in the chat, but he says, for now, do you already have several church leaders who are willing to appoint these care coordinators that you've talked about? What was the main challenge you faced for leaders to be willing to delegate this coordination to helpers? So basically, if you've got the pastor who says, but that's my office, that's my job, then like how do you help them get past that? Or what challenges have you faced in terms of putting those coordinators in?
yeah, I wonder if I could be so bold and to say, Paul Kuzma, do you have thoughts on that question as a pastor who pastors pastors?
Yeah, what was that question again? Can you restate it?
Yeah. So, all right. So, here, Jeremy Thomas from the island nation of Mauritius is looking at this question of how do if you
Ah,
already have like these church leaders that are willing to appoint the care coordinators to help the folks navigate, or have what are the challenges with the pastor who wants to hold on to that level of control? And so if you're with a pastor who says, I'm just not willing to delegate that type of authority. So how do you get through that roadblock?
well, I can't say that in working with our Foursquare pastors and the church cares for integration at the congregational level, I haven't actually yet faced a resistance on the pastor's uh, level to release the ministry and let it flow from somebody else. I expect that at some point I will. And my primary analogy to use is biblical with you know, Moses, the Moses story, and you know, releasing ministry, and you got to have people to help you. When it comes to so I have found in the several conversations I've had, and I'm talking 8 to 10 at this point, pastors I'm actively working with who are at some level of considering using the church cares model, that the primary challenge there has been finding a coordinator who doesn't necessarily feel overwhelmed with the coordination. That's been a challenge for most pastors, is running into the coordinator feeling well equipped enough to be able to handle coordination without being overwhelmed.
Can I give an example?
Absolutely.
So one of the people that I interviewed during the process, I think I might have even quoted her in the book. I can't remember. But the way she is a licensed clinician, and her church was one that over the last few years had actually put something like this in place. Again, everybody has their own DNA. Everybody's going to do it differently. But her church had put something in place. And one of the key pivot points was that they went to her as a licensed clinician and said, we don't need you to run the thing for the next 10 years. We just need your help getting it started. And would you be willing, since you are a clinician who attends our church, would you be willing to help us do that? And she said, it was like a light bulb moment for everybody, because she was like, I already spend 2 to 3 hours a week volunteering in the children's ministry. Like no offense to the children's ministry, but man, my time, that 2 to 3 hours a week, will be far better used helping with this and helping to set it up. And so that's one of the things that we encourage, is that if nothing else, present it, find somebody in your congregation who you think, even if it's a team of 2 to 3 people, so it's not all in one, and say, I'm not asking you for the next 2 years. I'm just asking you for the next few months. Can you help us get this started to see what it looks like?
Love that.
And go from there. And
Excellent.
that's a bit of an easier lift.
Definitely.
That would tended to be a success strategy.
That's wonderful. All right. Well, I know that we are beyond time, so I'm going to let you all go. But before you do, please do click the link that popped into the chat. Next month, we are really excited. We've got some folks from Harvard University that have published a book, A Theology of Health, Wholeness, and Human Flourishing. So and this gets to the very thing that we were talking about there at the end, in particular, Paul, your comment about the Moses thing. What we believe and how we think about these things actually informs what we do. And so what I want you to invite you to come and to think about is, how do we develop a theology of health and wholeness and human flourishing? It's going to be a great time. Information is on the website, but there is a link in the chat. Please do feel free to sign up, and we can't wait to see you all then. Jim, thank you so much. Shaunti, thank you for your scholarship and for your team's hard work. So thank you all so much for joining us. Bye-bye.